Okay, now we'll look. I already wrote the program with the function h2i, and I will go over and explain it. I hope it's not going to be too overwhelming. You may need to watch this more than once because there may be some things that we didn't learn yet which are here. But anyway, I think you will understand it. You'll just have to watch it more than once. So the beginning is the program itself. It's just a shell program, and I'm defining the functions prototype here. And the functions that I'll be using are the new function, of course, that we are writing. So we talked about h2i. This is h2i. It returns an integer, and it receives a character string. So a character string is an array of character, and we write it as char and then square brackets. That means a character string, we don't know the length, any length we can get. So that's why the square brackets are empty. And the next one is the function power, which we already wrote, and power receives two integers and it returns an integer. So this will be familiar with if you watched lesson 9 part 1. And the main program, okay, we define a character string and we call it hex underscore str, and I gave it the length of 100. It doesn't matter, we just want the maximum number that we can fit in. So the first thing the program will do, and I'm printing it in notation of C++, even though we're learning C, it's easier to use the cout of C++ instead of printf, and all I have to do is those signs of less than and put a string. Please enter a hexadecimal string. I ask the user to enter a hexadecimal string, and then I do scanf. We know scanf. We use the ampersand because that's the address of the character string hex str. So whatever the user types as a character string and hit enter gets into the variable hex str, which is a character string. And then I ask if h2i of hex underscore str, which is the character string because we put it into this variable, not equals to -1, that means we calculated the value and then we print the decimal value is, and then we activate again h2i of on hex str. We call the function h2i here on the character string that's in the variable hex underscore str, and here we get the value in decimal. And else is if we did get -1, because here I asked if it's not -1. If we did get -1, that means we got an incorrect number, and then we say to the user, sorry, your input was wrong, please try again. And that's the end of the program. But this is just the shell that will use the h2i function, and now the more serious part is the h2i function, which we designed in the last two sessions, and here I will show you the h2i function itself, where it says function definitions. Okay, so here we start. The first thing I do is I use a function that you're not familiar with that's called strlen. Strlen gives me the length of a string. So here the string, the parameter is a string input, and I call it hex with the empty square brackets. So the parameter is what I get from the main program as the character string that's supposed to convert into decimal, right? So it goes into the variable hex, which is a string of unknown length. So in order to know the length, I define a variable, integer len, and I put into it, I say equals str length. Str length, bring me the length of the string hex that we defined here. So this will give me the length of the string that was entered as an input. Now, if the length of the input is less than 2, it's an error, because remember we said that the way the input is going to be, it's going to be a string of the letters and numbers that make up a hexadecimal, and at the end we put an X. So if at the end we put an X, the minimum will be 1 digit and X. Or it doesn't matter which number, we could even have 0x, but it will be the length of 2. So if we have something that's shorter than 2, that means either we don't have the X at the end, or if we have the X, we have only the X. So if it's shorter than 2, then we issue a message. Normally in a function we don't issue messages, but this time I wanted to issue messages to show you that we capture the errors the way we design the program. So in this case we say hex string too short must be AX, where A is 1 or more characters, and then return -1. And if you remember, when we do return inside the function, the rest of the function doesn't get executed, so it stops right here. So if this condition was true, if len was less than 2, then we ended the function here. If it wasn't true, we continue. And now we check the next type of error. What do we check here? Here we'll check that the last digit is, or the last character of the string is either small x or large x. And the way we do it is we say hex, which is the character string, and we put in the square brackets, we put the index. And the index of the last character is len -1. Why is it len -1? Because, for instance, if we had a string of 4 characters, the last one would be hex of 3, right? Because it starts from 0. You know that the array starts from 0. So the hex of 0 is the one from the left. Hex of 1 is the next one. Hex of 2 is the next one. And the last one to the right will be hex of the length, because the length will be given in regular numbers. So for example, if the string is 1x, the length will be 2. If the string is 1x, the length will be 3. So we always have to drop 1 from the length to get the index of the last character. And if we say if hex of the last character, if the last character in the string is not little x, and the same thing, the last character of the string is not large x, then we issue an error and we say hex string not ending with x, small x or large x, but with, and we give the actual character in which that string ends, which means we give the user all the information why they entered a wrong string. And again here we return -1, and this ends the function if the last character was not little x or big X. And if it was, then the function continues, and the rest of the function I will have to explain in the next session because I'm running out of time. But I hope you understood at least those 2 error checks, and if not, try to review again this video, and if still you don't understand, then I'll explain you more in an email. So I'll end this one, and the next one will have the rest of the function.